Righto guys, so back here today. Today has just been a very big day of, now that we have everything dummied up, finding parts that are going to work, coming up with a list of parts, getting it invoiced, etc. Starting to work out what we're going to run. So Castlemaine make a high mount alt and a high mount AC, which are going to work great. Now, unfortunately, as we talked about, the only way that we're going to be able to get this dry sump setup to work the way it is to have a pump mounted on this side. We're not going to have enough room for the depth of a pump for it to be forwards from where that's driven from. So it's going to have to be reverse mounted, which means it has to be reverse rotation. And I am frantically asking everyone I know of that is, has a lot more experience in dry sump setups than we do, about whether they are aware of any, dry sump pump on the market that is reverse rotation or not rotational. We admittedly are not experienced enough to know whether they are rotational or not. We have to assume they are because of the way pumps inherently work. So if there's any on the market that are omnidirectional or reverse rotation that are going to work, that's about the only way we're going to be able to make this work where this is driven from in the guise that it's in, because of all the stuff we've got going on here and how close the engine mounts are to the front and our steering rack. So it just is what it is. That's what we're dealing with. If there's nothing on the market that's going to work that way, the only real solution that I can see that's going to work is to ditch this crank support altogether, hit up Joe Blow and get an internal crank support, which is built into a billet timing cover that supports the crank from back here, and then get a oil pump drive that comes off the front. So instead of having this crank support here, you'd have an oil pump drive off here, which then obviously gives you all of this room here to have an oil pump. It's driven right off the front instead of being driven right at the back from everything and needing all that depth. Obviously, we'd still have to sort out another sump that has all the ports on this side, or at least just the ports at the back on this side, either or. Obviously, we just need a sump that's going to work. And as we talked about last night briefly, even if we went wet sump with an external pump, we are still going to have the same inherent issues of having to mount a pump somewhere. And in the guise that it's in, it's still going to have to be most likely a reverse rotation pump, because we just don't have the depth with that engine mount. And because of the way the front end is all built in one piece and the way the engine mounts are and stuff, to modify the engine mount to make this work would just be a nightmare. Not really keen on entertaining that at all. It pretty much has to be a solution with the pump side of things and the sump, and not a solution with modifying the engine mount, because yeah, just the whole way this front end's all built and integrated and the way the engine mounts are, not happening. So anyway, that's where we're at with it. Apart from that, steadily finding things. Whipple actually do now make a fly-by-wire throttle body to suit this blower, the reverse entry. We're just gonna have to get one from the States, which lately things from the States seem to get here quicker than anything from Australia. The way freight has been this year, it's been an absolute nightmare. So otherwise the solution was gonna have to start looking like a 3D designed adapter to go from the blower entry to like a twin 110 mil round throttle bodies or something, and run a twin throttle body setup to get the airflow that we need. But anyway, that's going to be a better solution if we can get one from the States. So anyway, yeah, at this stage it's just planning, finding solutions for the issues we're facing. We've sorted out a radiator layout and got the owner to order a radiator from his radiator guy, steadily working through the issues that have arisen. Anyway, it's all part and parcel as far as very highly custom, highly aftermarket, high performance builds like this go. It's good to showcase it. People, I don't think, realize or understand just how much careful planning, custom work, and solutions to issues go into builds like this. It's not like it's just a general mechanical thing where everything's just off the shelf, buy it and bolt it in and stuff. And this is why we don't do very many of them anymore, because for how much time we have to put in, we don't really get paid very much, realistically. I've nearly spent all day today just planning out, finding parts, getting prices, emails, asking questions, finding solutions to these issues, and it's not really billable time. So we do these things because we really enjoy them, and a build like this really gets us excited. So that's why we do these. But yeah, I'll showcase the best I can the issues we have to overcome and the adversity and what happens with these things, because it's an immense amount of work. Not that I've not done it before with HQ, King Barra and that sort of thing. It's been done plenty on the channel, but just so that you can see. So with this setup, we will be doing a complete intercooler kit as well, intercooler setup. So we'll have our radiator, obviously behind the radiator support panel. We'll have our oil cooler and our transcooler in front of that. And then in front of that, we'll have a nice big condenser, AC condenser, which is going to work for obviously our AC inside the car, which I'll get to as well, and our intercooler setup. And then the intercooler will be in front of that. And the idea will be to pretty much mount the interchiller right behind the bumper bar so that it's not impeding on any of the airflow to the condenser at all. So we think that it's going to be a pretty good size and it's all going to work pretty well. And that's the plan at the moment. Because it's not a HQ, it doesn't have a HQ grill, it's a HJ and has a flat grill, we should have a fair bit more room. And then obviously, because it's a condenser, we don't have a heat exchanger and we don't have an intercooler. We just got our transfer cooler, oil cooler, radiator, condenser. Happy days. And it all works off that. Righto guys, another long night and day of finding solutions, getting things together, sorted. And yeah, it's been decided we are going to go internal crank support. That's what's going to happen. We're going internal crank support. We're going to have to order a new sump with fittings on this side or just at the back. Something that's going to work with this steering rack. And with the internal crank support, it obviously gives us this much room for a pump. So I'm looking at the moment at potentially a Savvy Motorsport pump for the bracket that they make for this side of the engine and the pumps they supply. It appears to me that it's going to be the one that's going to fit with the least amount of modifications. Obviously still going to need a lot of modifying to fit our setup with the blower drive and everything, but it looks like it's going to be the closest. So that's what I'm looking at the moment. I'm just trying to ask a few more people that are more experienced with dry sump setups as far as whether they're a good pump, what they've heard of them, what they know about them, etc. And we'll find out some more info and probably go that way. So with all that said, we've now got a whole heap more parts on the way to keep this thing moving along. And at the moment, about the last thing, with the interchiller, because of its downward displacement supercharger, we do need to space it up off the ports and put a thermal blanket underneath it. So that's going to give us probably a little bit of extra height on the blower. So at this stage, I'll continue to move my focus back into getting this bottom end sorted and together while we wait for some more things to arrive, and we'll keep on cracking along with this thing. But it's been a huge big step getting the dummy in there and getting a whole list of parts together and getting everything on the way. So there's a few things that have got to come from the States. So the throttle body is coming directly from Whipple in the States. It's a new oval 2750 CFM throttle body. It's essentially the same throttle body as that one, but it is fly-by-wire. However, they are designed to replace the throttle on the GT500 Mustangs, and they are designed to work with the fly-by-wire motor and TPS off of the Mustang throttle body. So as well as the throttle body from Whipple, you have to get a Mustang throttle body to rob the motor and the TPS off of. Now, I called and talked to Herod Performance in Victoria, I think they are. Not the first time I've dealt with Herod Performance, and they've always been really, really helpful and really, really good to deal with. And it just so happens that they have a Mustang, well, it's not a Mustang, I think it might be a Coyote, but either way, apparently they're all the same, just that Whipple obviously say Mustang because they're in America and they got Mustangs, but it sounds like the FPVs and stuff might have had the same throttle body, motor and TPS. But regardless, Herod have a throttle body there that has a faulty stopper screw or something mechanical in the throttle body that was faulty, which obviously is not going to affect us because we only need it to rob the motor and the TPS off of. So they're going to sell us that cheap because it's a B stock item. So absolutely awesome. Good pickup and a good score there. So a huge big thank you to Herod Performance. Those guys are super, super awesome to deal with. Not that we deal with them that much because we don't do a lot of Ford stuff, but every time I have had to deal with them, they've been really, really helpful. Alright guys, so we are finally about to start degreeing in this cam and get this timing sorted. Our other head has been fixed and is already on the way back, so huge big thanks to the boys there at Next Gen Engineering / Tremaniac Racing. Got onto that absolute quick smart. It's already on Express Post back to us, so thank you very much for sorting that out for us. So anyway, this is the cam that came in the short block that was purchased by the customer, which we've now sort of rebuilt up to this point. It's a Warspeed Wasp 01, which is actually made by Kelford. Kelford and Warspeed are obviously in cahoots, and Kelford does all Warspeed's custom grind cams, and it's a really nice cam. So we were really happy to keep running it, or to run it. The cam that came with it, it's going to suit us very, very well. It's literally essentially built for exactly this combination. So couldn't get a better cam. No point not to run it. But I did have to get on to Troy at Warspeed there to get a cam card, because we obviously, having it come in the block, we didn't have a cam card for it to go off. And so he has sent us a copy of a cam card for the cam. So huge big thank you to Troy there at Warspeed Industries. So yeah, it's time to degree it in. It is a pretty decently sized cam. It is a 250/263, and the lift at 1:7 ratio is 629/626. Which obviously being LS7, this is actually going to be 1:8 ratio, so the net lift for the valve is going to be quite a bit more than that. So nice little cam. But anyway, we're going to degree it in. We are going dual row timing chain setup on this thing. Dual row timing chains are pretty divisive. A lot of people love them, a lot of people hate them. Personally, I've always been of the opinion that it's pretty hard to load up a hydraulic roller valve train hard enough to necessitate a dual row, but it is a good just little bit of insurance. Now, given that this thing's dry sump, we're not going to have the inherent issues of having too much offset on the oil pump and trying to fit a front cover, etc. on it. We're not going to have those issues. So Bo's just done a little bit of a chamfer on our cam backing plate for the dart block. We also got our custom dual row LS2 timing wedge dampener to suit a dual row setup. They're obviously a bit thicker than a regular one for an LS2 to suit the dual row, and that's what we're doing. So we get this cam in, get it dialed in, degree it up. Be one more thing done, checked off the list. Righto guys, so dialing in, this is why it's always so important to dial cams in, but it does appear that this is about 6 degrees retarded. So I think I'm going to have to advance it 6 degrees to get it right, or about 5 degrees retarded on the intake opening, 7 degrees retarded on the intake closing, 5 retarded intake exhaust opening, 7 retarded intake exhaust closing, sorry. 6 retarded on the intake center line and 8 retarded on the exhaust center line. So I believe that translates to roughly about 6 degrees, I reckon, that it's retarded. Again, the tool we used for the base of this, for the dial indicator to show us the cam events, it's not perfectly the same shape as a lifter wheel. So we do find that we do get slight variations of like 1 and 2 degrees. So given that we've got 5 and 7, I'm going to go with the fact that probably need to advance it 6 degrees, and we should be sort of on the money there. So, well, it's always so important, particularly when you're using aftermarket stuff. So, not always just the camshaft. It can be in the timing sets that you use can be slightly out, and because these cranks are aftermarket, it can also be that the keyways aren't, you know, exactly where they would normally be as well. So, between the keyway on the crank where that's situated, your timing set where they're machined, and then obviously your dowel and stuff on the cam, and then obviously your actual cam grind, all these things can change what's actually happening with your valve events. And that is why it is so important to actually dial it in and check. Always dial them in, every single one. So you guys know, generally we have found that with the cams that we normally use in the stock bottom end situations that we normally would do in just cam kits and stuff, usually they're pretty right, they're pretty on the money. But when you're starting to go that lots of aftermarket stuff, that's when you start to get a lot more variation and things like that. All those reasons why it's so important to do all your necessary checks. But if you're building engines like this, I assume that you already know all of that and what you're doing. So anyway, I'm going to pull this back off, advance it to 6 degrees, try again. Righty-ho guys, so there you have it. We're actually closest to carded at 8 degrees advanced on the timing set. So really close, as close as you get with the equipment we're using. Like you can't ask for much closer than that. But yeah, even at 6 degrees advanced, we were still a little bit retarded. A little bit different to what's carded, but yeah, at 8 degrees advanced we're the closest out of all of them. It could be that the cam was actually ground retarded. The other difference is going to be likely in the crank and the keyway, where the keyway is actually in the crank in regards to the rotation. But either way, we're pretty well on the money there, so that's where we'll sort it out with our final install now with our timing set, etc. Actually use some Loctite, get it all in there properly, and it's all happy days now. There you have it guys, all degreed in, ready to go. Even if it is 8 degrees advanced, it is as carded on paper, so yeah, moving on. Alright guys, so I've just been finalising all the bungs and block offs and stuff in the block, getting all that stuff back in, and I haven't checked our crank angle air gap because I haven't been able to get any late model crank angle sensors for quite a while. They've been out of stock from our supplier. I haven't been able to get hold of any. So I ended up, what I actually did, I decided just now to flog this out of another engine that we had built for another customer that I don't think is going to need it before we're going to need this one. Hopefully we can still get another one by the time he needs that one. So just a lack of stock. Anyway, I've chucked that in, and our air gap for our crank angle is way too big. Not ideal at all. Need to get that much smaller. Need to get that way down, which could be a problem. So this could definitely be a real annoying thing. Definitely caught me out. Should have checked it earlier. Would have checked it earlier if I had a sensor, but Didn't really think too much of it, just kept going because of not being able to get a sensor. But it's obviously become apparent that I'm definitely not going to be able to get a sensor by the time this is meant to go in. So anyway, from the research that I have done, it is supposedly not uncommon for people building dart blocked engines to actually have that pad in their machine down to allow you to get that closer to where it needs to be in there. So that's frustrating and annoying. Hopefully we can come up with another solution, because obviously machining that down at the moment, the way this engine is absolutely not ideal. That would be a whole lot of work for nothing, and it would be very, very frustrating. But at the end of the day, we need that gap right, because we can't go having crank angle issues. It's not going to happen. So I will do some research into the Haltech as well. I'm assuming with the Haltech we'll be able to get away with a lot more gap than we would be able to with a standard ECU. So hopefully we can come up with some sort of solution that's going to work all around. Because if not, that's freaking, yeah, what a way to end the day. Anyway, that is what it is. We'll see how we go tomorrow. Gonna have to sort out a new friggin' paint pen as well. This one is not liking this oil. It's just coming right off. It's a waste of friggin' time. Might see if I can find another paint pen that doesn't just mix with oil and cause that, because that makes it pretty useless having the lines on there, doesn't it? I'm not going to be able to tell anything by the time this is run if that's how the paint pen's going to go with the oil. Alright, we've got our other BR7 LS7 head back, so huge big thanks to Maniac for getting that back to us so fast. They really got onto that quick for us. Huge thank you. We've also got our interchiller kit has arrived. So, Kirk there from Interchillers, forced induction interchillers. Got our kit all sorted for us. So super excited for this whole build, the whole combo of things. Just so sick, man. So sick. So that's our actual interchiller unit, and the plan is to try and fit that up behind the bumper so it doesn't affect flow to the condenser at all. Our blower spacers, our thermal blanket, everything else involved. So this is not the first interchiller kit we've done, but yeah, really, really like these setups. They're so good. So just everything about this build is just, I'm so glad we've been able to do it the way we want to do it. Man, it's just gonna be so sick. So sick. All right, what's up guys? It's been a hot minute. We've got a lot of catching up to do on this thing, and a few other things, but just thought I'd take you through. I've been so sick the past like 2 weeks. Last week I was pretty well bedridden all week, and then we had another car here that cost us another sort of 2 days, so I've pretty much lost just over a week. Bo was sick as well, so we've lost a heap of time, which has been a real mad pain. And just like always with aftermarket custom stuff, you got problems that just cascade, and one problem leads into another, and things just never freaking go right. We are quickly approaching the deadline, or a deadline I should say. From us, the car still has to go. Someone else is doing all the brakes, and then the radiator has to get built, and then it's going back to the fabricator to get a scatter shield put in. The inner tubs have to be done, and we're going to get the fabricator to do a few little things for us, reservoirs and stuff like that we want done. And then it comes back to us to get finalized, started, run in, everything else, as much as we can do. So yeah, we've got the high mount AC and alternator on the way. The interchiller kit is here, and we didn't end up ordering the pump with the AC high mount kit because the bloke who runs forced induction interchillers actually recommended another compressor, which is the same frame as a Sandon 508, but it's meant to be ported. So it's meant to be actually a much bigger capacity, but fits in the same area as a Sandon 508, which means that with the Castlemane high mount kit, we'll be able to run that pump, and he very highly recommended that to get the best results out of our interchiller kit, which I'm very happy about. We've ordered the under dash system. That's the other thing, is when it goes back to the fabricator, he's doing a full sheet metal dash, and the idea was that he was going to integrate all of the vents and stuff to our under dash AC system, which I ordered from Retro Spares a month ago. Still haven't got it. I was chasing that up today, trying to figure out where the hell that is. But I ordered it is a vintage air underdash system, because it's the only one that I could get, which was a triple combination of heater core, AC, and defrost. So windscreen, defrost on the windscreen, which I wanted to have all in the car. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know where the frick it is. I've emailed them, haven't heard back, can't get on anyone. But yeah, that was ordered a month ago, and I still have no updates on where the hell it is. So that's a pain. Still waiting on our high mount accessories to come from Castlemane. And today I've been going through all of the dry sump system, trying to get all that ordered. And then we've been on to Velocity Engineering, and he is going to make us a new port fitting for the sump, which will remove the front port, and that will be flush. And I've checked it. We can get a banjo into the steering rack. As long as that's flush, it'll all work. We'll be able to run the sump, which is great. So that takes it from a 5-stage down to a 4-stage because we only have 3 scavenge ports plus our pressure stage. And then we're trying to figure out where we can fit an oil reservoir if we can just buy one. Otherwise, we're going to have to get Wagon, the fabricator, to make one that's going to suit, which is looking likely at this stage. So yeah, trying to work through all that. We're at a point now where we can start basically mounting all our stuff in the front that we need, start mounting all the stuff in the back that we need. We've ordered a bracket for the power steering pump from Low Industries, the electric power steering. So, and then we can sort out our plumbing and we can start wiring up and try and get that sorted. But at this stage, it is looking like it's probably going to have to go from here the first time with the dummy engine in it. Reasons being, I will get into in a minute. Sort of where we're at the moment. The other issue we've got at the moment is I'm trying to figure out what to do about injectors. It's got 2200 CNG injectors at the moment. We all know, any tuner knows, CNG injectors are rubbish. They're absolutely terrible. But the only, you can only get non-CNG injectors that aren't methanol, for methanol and that sort of thing, up to about 1500 cc or 1650 cc at 4-bar, which is not quite going to get us exactly to where we wanted to be. So we're trying to figure out what to do about injectors. At this stage, we're probably just going to run the 1650s, and it's just going to have to get to where it wants to pull up, and we'll have to worry about it at a later date because we're running out of time on the deadline. At the end of the day, that's up to the owner. He's the one that wants it all done by this date. So we've got to sort of work within what he wants to get it done by and what we can do in that time. And at this stage, we're still thinking just the good 1650cc at 4-bar Bosch stainless steel injectors, because we know they're good, we know they control really well. Either that or actually probably the 1500cc, which are also 1650cc at 4-bar XS by Expert, because they come with really good data. So probably one of those two, and it's probably going to end up making about 1000 wheel, and that's probably going to be where we run out of injector for that. But we'll have to do some research, see if these blowers, whether you can run auxiliary injectors in the intake just to get some more fuel happening. You know, it will be pretty borderline. We'd only need probably 2 or 3 more injectors in the intake track to get to what we want to get to. But anyway, again, there's only so much we can do in the time we've got. So many friggin' problems we can figure out and do in that time. And the frustrating thing is, like I said, guys, it'd be probably over 80 hours of just sorting the stuff out. And the problem is that it's really hard to charge for that time on these projects. And that's why we don't really do them. But it is what it is. So anyway, now we'll get into where we're up to with the engine and what's going on there, because heaps of fun there. All right, so where we're at with this engine. I think last time I signed off, I did talk about the fact that our crank angle sensor, the air gap's far too big. And what we found out is with these dart blocks, the very early runs of blocks, there was a problem. It was a pretty renowned issue. I know Troy Worsley has talked about it before, but essentially what needs to happen is that this pad that holds the crank angle sensor needs to be machined down in order to close up the air gap between the sensor and the reluctor wheel. So it's a Haltech, and I did have the thought, maybe because it's a Haltech, we can alter the arming voltages. We can do all of that, but I'm not sure, and I don't want it to become an issue later on. Now, the problem is with that is that I'm not sure, and the last thing I want to do is get the whole engine together and in the car, and then start having issues with this, you know, on the dyno, because it's a lot easier as it is now to pull it down, get the block back to the machine shop, have that fixed, come back, put it all back together, and get to this point. That's a lot better than having to pull it back out of the car with the heads on, with our crusher and gaskets and everything, pull it all apart and go do it anyway. So I am going to do that. Our boys there at SP Automotive, they're just going to do it on the day. So Friday, I am going to take this down, have it machined, close up that air gap to what we want, and you can always shim it out if it's too tight. But obviously if it's too far out, there's nothing you can do. So they're going to machine that on the day. I'll go down on Friday. So Anzac Day, I'll be pulling this back down. Friday, I'll go for a trip, get that sorted out. Come back, I'll put it back together on the weekend, which is a pain, but you know, it's just pulling it apart and then put it back together. I don't have to redo bearing clearances. I don't have to re-dial in the cam. It's going to be the same crank, you know, all that dialing in, all that's done. So it's not a huge job. That's why I'd rather just do it now. Then it's done, and I will know that we're not going to have issues with the reluctor wheel, because that's the last thing we're going to want. Now, the other thing is we've got our new internal crank support. So we talked about this back to here. As you can see, really lovely piece of kit from Joe Blow Speed Shop. Awesome. Really nice piece, and it comes with the sleeve to suit the ATI balancer, so internal crank support instead of external, so that we can have the drive up the front. Now the problem is that because of our high mount accessory situation, we were counting on using a OEM water pump to keep our belt route to make our high mount accessories work. Unfortunately, because of our new internal crank support, now our water pump does not fit. Fails on the crank support. It's not much, but it's just enough. You'd probably need about 4 or 5 mil spacers to space it out, which we've checked. You can buy them, but we've checked it on the dummy engine, and we don't think it's going to work. We're pretty sure if you space it out that much, it's not going to work with our Gen 4 offset, and the belt will then run against the pump. Not only that, but there's no way we can get... They do make those spacers, but there's no one in Australia that I can get some from before this deadline. So I'm trying to figure out how to go about this water pump situation. I've emailed Joe Blow Speed Shop to ask them about what they advise. They just reckon that they know that the Mazir electric water pumps fit fine, and that's all well and good, except for the fact that because of our belt route, because we're relying on that water pump to keep our belt route for our high mount accessories, I need a water pump that has at least an idler. I need the idler, I need it there for the belt route to make this work. The problem is I can't get onto anyone that can give me any sort of engineering drawings. Mazir do make a electric water pump that has a idler fitting, but I just cannot find any information about whether it's actually going to clear this crank support. And the problem is, you're talking about like a $1,800 water pump. It's a bit of a gamble to spend that much money and have one get here and it still fails anyway, and you're no further on than you are right now. So again, guys, just example of things cascading. You know, a lot of people think this sort of stuff is just, you know, remove and refit and everything just bolts together like Lego. It's not the case. You know, we've got an aftermarket engine block, we've got issues with that. We've got a full aftermarket Castlemaine front end, rack and pinion, and that's caused us problems with our completely aftermarket dry sump. And then because it's aftermarket cross member steering rack and then aftermarket engine mounts, that's caused us problems with room with where we can mount a pump, which has severely limited to our options as far as the dry sump setup goes. And then because of those limitations, we weren't able to run the external crank support, which means we have to drive the sump off the front, which means we had to go an internal crank support so we could fit the oil pump that we want to fit, which is still going to have to be on a custom mount. And then because we've gone to the internal crank support, now the water pump doesn't fit. Then we're going to have to look at trying to go, you know, aftermarket water pump, and you could see just one problem just leads into another, and it just does my head in. Very stressful, but it is what it is. The other place we're at is our U-Butte freaking wicked shaft mount rockers. Are not really going to work with these heads the way we thought. You do have to machine the heads to fit the shaft mount rockers, but these heads must be slightly different casting to what the supplier who we got those rockers off thought they were, and where you have to machine down flat and then retap to suit the shaft mount or the shaft rail, there's not enough meat. So a lot of other BR7 head castings, they seem to have basically meat all the way around this head bolt between the two rocker posts that are there, and then you can machine them down and you retap. The rocker post lines up with 4 of these holes, the other 4 have to be retapped. But from what we can see lining up the rail, even if we were to machine these down and retap them, the hole's going to end up half off the post, and there's not enough material there for us to actually tap that hole, and you can't get it down flat because you'll end up in the intake port roof. So unsure what's going on there. It's one of those things that's just, it's getting too hard. We can't get any confirmation on whether there is any shaft rockers that will fit this particular casting, and we're run out of time, and it is what it is. It is one of those things that I should have checked a lot earlier. This is one thing that I should have definitely checked earlier, but obviously I was at the time trying to get this freaking engine together, and this head had to go back to get the valve guide fixed, and by the time everything's back here, this is just where we're at. So this one's my fault, this one's on me. I should have checked that earlier, but unfortunately it means we're gonna have to wear that cost anyway, so it is what it is. But I've just ordered some standard OEM LS7 rockers. So at this stage, because these heads are designed to work with standard OEM rockers, that's why these posts are in there. We're just going to run LS7 rockers with CHE trunnions. They're going to work for what we want to do. Would have been nice to have the extra security of shaft rockers and that sort of thing, but I mean, obviously we've never had a CHE rocker fail, and I don't believe we'll be loading up the drivetrain, the valve train that hard that it's going to cause us problems. Anyway, it just is what it is, but that's where we're at. That's where we're at with it. So many things that are not ideal solutions. One problem after another. I'm sure that we'll hopefully get a water pump that's going to clear this, and then who knows, maybe that water pump will have issues with the actual blower support for the blower snout for the pulley. Who knows? It could, you know, it could just lead to another freaking problem, and that's the issue with the aftermarket custom performance industry. Overcoming problems, and it's frustrating and hard when you're working with time limits and budgets and Man, it's hard. But anyway, I think that's enough blabber. Hope you enjoy my TED talk of all the issues we're facing with this thing. Just keep working through it, man. Keep working through it and trying to freaking come up with solutions on how everything's going to work. So that's what we do. So thanks guys for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. That's enough for an episode. Trying my hardest to get all the stuff here ASAP and try and get these problems solved as soon as possible. But roll with the punches. Cheers for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Smash like, smash subscribe. Peace out. See you. Bye.